Hey, this is the chair guy. How do you make giant leaps on the guitar? Like, say you're playing up at this G and you want to slide all the way down to that B. How do you see that using the chair system? Someone asked me that yesterday, and I thought it was a really good question because this was definitely a problem I encountered a lot when I was first learning it. And of course, I didn't have the stickers because these stickers are just something I came up with for the video so that you can see what I'm seeing just on a regular guitar. And so that was kind of tricky because even though you actually get a lot of range with just one set of chairs, because if you just have these three chairs, and then the bridges between them, that is a lot of distance, but it's going to be a little different in your head when you're trying to slide all the way down to here. So there are a couple of things I did to help mitigate that, at least to whatever extent I could, because obviously I don't know all keys on the guitar. I have to figure it out while I'm playing. There's a few keys I know really well, particularly G and E minor. I know those really well just because it was the first one I did. But this brings me to the first way, which is you just start learning notes. Now, obviously on this channel, I've many times said don't try to learn just all the notes on the neck, because that is, to me, is kind of a waste of time at first. But over time, you do get to know the notes. And so because I knew G and E minor so well, I tend to know where my G's are, I tend to know where my E's are, and from there I can figure a lot of other things out. And there's several other letters that, you know the A's and the B's and C's, and I just sort of know where they are, and that's what I use to orient myself. So if I know there's a G here, it just kind of, it teaches, because I know where all the chairs are in relationship to each other, if I just know those roots, I can use those roots to get me to any other notes I need. But I know that's not the perfect answer for everyone, particularly because some people don't want to think about the notes while they're playing. And that's fine because I totally understand that. Because you can look at notes as letters, you can look at notes as numbers, or you can just look at notes as sounds. And ultimately, I think that's where we're all trying to get. And so, what a lot of us are probably going to do is a combination of those things. Mine is a combination of those things. I know where a lot of letters are, but I also use the pattern. And so using the pattern is definitely the second way. So for instance, if I know these three notes, and I know there's a bridge to the top of this chair right here, then I can do exercises like this. I can play my G, and then play my A, play my G, play my B, play my G, play my D, play my G, play my E. And so, and what this starts doing is it just gets you used to covering that much distance, covering that many frets, because you're probably not going to just be able to look down and just count the frets and go, okay, it's 10 frets to the next note, or it's 12 frets to the next note. And so if you see it in little chunks of information, like, okay, here's that's 6. 1, 2 more, and 2 more. So that becomes like a shape in your head, and then this little 1 4 1 4. And it just starts becoming more obvious where that higher note is. And then of course, maybe you can learn to find your next G, and you just start seeing these little chunks of notes in kind of like these blocks. So I'm seeing these 3 notes, then I'm seeing these 2 notes, then I'm seeing these 3 notes again. And when you move to using the thrones instead of the chairs, it actually becomes more obvious, even though it's a little more complicated because you've got those extra 2 notes. It's a little more obvious just because the pattern is more filled in. But for the moment, I'm just using chairs because it's a little easier to see everything. Now, the third concept I use a lot is I make little lines in my head between the root and its lower fifth. Which, of course, you could look at as a little full stop or power chord or whatever. But what I do with them is, something I've learned about the guitar is it's really easy to break it down by 2 strings. If you have one thing on 2 strings, another thing on 2 strings, another thing on 2 strings, and it's very easy to make shapes like that, because the smaller the shape is, the more difficult it's going to be to see it all over the fretboard. The larger a shape is, it actually simplifies it, and that sounds really weird, but I'm going to do a whole video on this later where I just show how the pattern on 2 strings is really simple when you spread it out over a long distance, and then you just put them beside each other. So what I do is I have my root and my fifth, and then from my fifth I slide to the root. So basically I start knowing the distances between the fifth and the root, because that's how I orient myself. So there I'm using the root and fifth of major and the root and fifth of minor to get around the fretboard. So in major, and then in minor, sorry. So these are the same notes, but you're just sliding to them in different places, and then you also automatically know where you are. Because if I'm playing these 3 notes, I also know where I am, because I'm here on this purple chair, which means I'm playing the exact same notes as I am on this purple chair, and I'm just playing it in a different area. And so there's all kinds of little techniques. I know that it's a 1/4 above the front of my seat. So here I get to my E and my A, my first and my lower fifth for minor. And I hope that makes some sense. I will close in on these. But it's really just a matter of figuring out where the second shape is. You know, my first shape, what I call the first shape, is the 3 chairs where they're like this, where they're all full chairs. And then the second shape is where you start with the front of this chair and then go to a full chair and another full chair where it's broken over the B string, and then the back of a chair. And so when you start seeing it as, okay, I've got that shape, and then I've got this shape, and then I've got the next shape, it becomes a whole lot easier to make those kind of jumps, and not only make those jumps, but know where you are when you get down there. Because the shape you're going down to is very similar, depending on where you are, if not identical to this shape. You know, the B string changes it. But if I'm playing this here, so like there, I know that I'm dealing with the same 3 notes, but in 2 different octaves, because this one I'm playing under the green chair, this one I'm playing under the purple chair. I could slide up and play the exact same notes in the exact same octaves by sliding from purple chair to purple chair, or slide to the green chair. And it just starts making everything come together and making it feel a lot smaller, if that makes any sense. And I hope that helps. These are just little tricks that I used when I was first doing this, and I definitely suggest doing this on a regular guitar, not with the stickers. I mean, try it with the stickers first. If you have stickers, try that out, kind of get that shape into your head, and then move immediately to a regular guitar and make sure that you can find it there. And then once you get really good with, say, the G, E minor, then once you've got the G, E minor down really well, start going to other keys. And you just have to do little experiments like just do little things like that, but in another key, where you're going, okay, I'm underneath a chair. I know that my pinky is on the top of the next chair. I know that this note, in other words, is the same as this note. So I can jump down to this chair and you just take it in little bitty baby steps, just going from shape to shape in the exact same way that when you started out, feeling out the chairs that way. You're going to do the exact same thing. You're just going to do it vertically instead of diagonally. And for me, the trickiest thing, oddly enough, was figuring out the horizontal. That was for whatever reason, it was the hardest for my mind. But once I got it, once I learned how to move from this bridge into this chair and then into the top of this chair, it was one of the coolest realizations, one of the coolest light bulb moments for me, was when I was able to do that. And so just play around with it. Just play around with these shapes. If you want, you can certainly move up to the thrones, and it's all going to work the exact same way. You're just going to have more notes to stop at as you slide vertically between the thrones instead of just going diagonally. Hopefully that made some sense. Anyway, I will see you guys on the next one, and yeah, that was a great question. Thank you for that question.